The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the official positions of the sponsors, advertisers, or presenters. Advertising does not imply endorsement by the sponsors and presenters.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Lighting Controls podcast. We have another fantastic episode for you today, but before we jump into everything, let me just take a minute to remind everyone today's episode is presented by the LCA, the Lighting Controls Association.
And it's financially supported by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, or NAILD. Check out our website, lightingcontrolspodcast.com. We have all of our episodes, a news feed, merch store, training opportunities, as well as our Council on Lighting Controls Startup and Integration. Check them all out if you haven't already, but if you have, thank you so much. Also, huge thank you to our sponsor for this episode. We could not do this without you, MW Connect. You may know them previously as McWong. They are now rebranded as MW Connect. Check them out, mwconnect.us. They're an industry leader in award-winning Bluetooth mesh solutions. They've been in the business for over 40 years now. We just had them on as guests recently. Great opportunity to hear about the business. So check out that episode, but also just check out their products. If you're unfamiliar with the brand MW Connect, they really provide some excellent solutions. They're part of the conversation of informing lighting designers how to utilize lighting controls to better leverage their lighting systems. And they really want to be part of the next steps in lighting and lighting controls design that we're really coming up on the edges here of. But until then, we'll get into the conversation here. Today, we've got Bruce Clark. Bruce, do you mind just giving us a quick breakdown on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, well, before I do, I just want to say, man, sign me up. Whatever you're laying down, I'm picking up, man. So I appreciate that. Yeah, for your listeners, your podcasters, and your folks that tune into the video, I'm Bruce Clark. I am a lighting designer that is founding Sherpa. I call myself a lighting Sherpa of a company called Kaleidolight Lighting Design. My practice is primarily established to support and develop the custom technology integration community, also known as the CEDIA channel, custom integrators, AV guys, whatever. So I work in tandem with them on various projects throughout the country, doing lighting design solutions that buttress their controls systems to help provide a total lighting solution on projects.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, Bruce. Just for our listeners, we know I suspect a good number of our listeners are more attuned to the commercial side of things and less to the CEDIA side of things. So do you mind just explaining what the CEDIA channel looks like right now?
Oh man, yeah, that's a good loaded question. I would say CEDIA. If I am an individual that always likes to unpack my acronyms. So like if you just said, "Hey, yeah, I'm with NAILD," I'm like, okay, now what does NAILD stand for? I know what a hammer does, but I think you're talking about something else. CEDIA stands for Consumer Electronics Digital Installation Association or Digital Installers Association. Emerged out of the high-end audio, high-end video, television, market way back in the day. It was just a bunch of guys that had businesses that would sell these products as a bespoke, focused area of their product and service offerings to folks. And as CEDIA formed as a group of like-minded business owners that had a higher technological interest and acumen, as other technologies started to weave into the fabric of that primarily focused residential channel, luxury residential channel, they started to add other elements into the overall mix of services that they could provide, including theater installation. So that's where a lot of them get labeled AV guys. So high-end audio, high-end video, but then they started to get into, some of them got into security, some of them got into lighting controls, just controls specific, that's it. Others got into networking, started adding in shades to their mix. And now, what is it? Some of them are offering like air solutions, power solutions. because what they recognized is that in the residential sector, and I'm sure that this has some parallels in the commercial sector, as there's a greater degree of technological sophistication, as more products and services come online, each one of them has their own languages that they speak. And so having a professional that is able to integrate or tie in all of these disparate elements into what I refer to as a technological ecosystem to have them operate seamlessly for a single user is kind of what they do. It's kind of their bread and butter right now. So the CEDIA channel as a whole contains individuals that have their own continuum of expertise and interest, and even they themselves are looking to differentiate themselves. So on one end, you have what they call trunk slammers, guys that are like, "Hey, come on back here, guy. I got some televisions I'm going to sell you real cheap." And yeah, you want me to support, a multi-million-dollar installation? Yeah, I can do that for you. Give me the check, and I'll come put my plan together. I'll come back in a few weeks. Next thing you know, they skip town. On the other end are guys that are really trying to develop a total integrated technological solution that really elevates the overall experience of the client on the inside. With a full suite of technologies that they leverage together for them. And so within that space enters this concept of lighting. Low voltage lighting was really huge too, because a lot of these guys are referred to as low voltage technicians, running a lot of Cat 6, Cat 5 for their product. But then as some of that went through some hiccups, and they for example, a company called LumaStream. Maybe you've heard of them. You probably won't today because they went bankrupt and got dissolved and absorbed by other entities that currently occupy the lighting space. The lighting, though, was part of the conversation, primarily driven, I believe, by at least two factors. One, the advent of the LED, moving into more of a digital realm, digital control of fixtures, a little bit more sophistication of understanding forward phase, reverse phase, things that you guys know really well. I'm still developing a better consciousness of myself, I hate to say. But within that infrastructure, they recognize lighting is moving closer to aligning with things that we've already been engaged in for a long time. At the same time, too, they found themselves on the back end of having to control with a sophisticated system products that they had no influence over. And so you might have some electrical contractor who's tasked with providing lighting on a residential project, and they just choose the cheapest fixture that doesn't cost them that much and the easiest to install. And they don't even ask any questions about the so-called dimming protocol. Oh, look at that! I got some confetti. I guess my computer likes the word dimming protocol.
That capability. For those who are just listening, for those who are just listening, he did air quotes and then some confetti fell down on the video. So, anyways,
the video liked that, I guess. So, control protocol. They recognize that if we can influence lighting selections based upon what we know will work with our system, then we're able to provide a more comprehensive solution. And oh, by the way, the number of TVs that I have in a project may be, let's say, half dozen at most, if like super huge. Maybe everyone wants a TV, but how many downlights do you have in some of these projects and some of these houses?
Yeah. Right.
And if we can get a share of that, that can really help us out, So as lighting has evolved within the residential space, as the controls have evolved in the residential space, they're moving in the direction of merging the two. But as Webster, you and I know right well, and my friend, I don't know if you do lighting design as well, but knowing lighting design and knowing lighting fixtures, there's a wide range of experience and expertise brought to bear to become very proficient and then actually master it. And so while they're trying to get into the lighting fixtures game, for the purposes I mentioned before, they're discovering, oh man, lighting is like a whole lot. And if you don't get it right, you can really screw things up. So that's where I'm trying to leverage my entree to the field and kind of help support them. That's a long-winded answer to a very
No,
simple
it's
question,
great.
but I
I
hope that
mean,
No, it was
gives
great. It
perspective.
was, yeah.
yeah, and Ron, I don't know if you want to respond to his inquiry about your knowledge and expertise in lighting.
I dabble with lights. It's no, my focus.
Says
focus
Paul
is
Newman at the
mainly.
pool table.
Yeah.
I
My
shoot around a
focus
few balls
is
every now and again, you know.
yeah, right. Why not? We do a lot of theatrical, but we also do a lot of architectural. But most of the architectural that I do is focused in like the specialty stuff, the architainment world, right? We do a lot of color changing.
Okay,
We do a
yeah.
lot of bridges, building exteriors.
Yeah.
So we don't do a lot of downlights and things like that. That said, we do work with a bunch of high-end residential clients where we've made some suggestions based on layouts from a designer and help them make product selections. But we don't typically get into doing like lighting layouts and lighting calculations for general floor plans, if that makes sense.
Definitely makes sense. Okay, that's good.
But
We
yeah, I
dabble.
mean, thanks for that breakdown on the CEDIA side of things, because I
It was good.
was brought in to see the landscape of this side of the industry last year, and have just been very intrigued by the progress that's going on there, and the players that really have a heavy stake in the game. And so the custom integrators, or the dealers I'm going to refer to from here on, which are the people who do this custom integration solution that you were talking about, where you tie all of the systems together that are usually speaking different languages, have always been providing the lighting controls, at least with modern systems. They are the ones that tend to provide the lighting control systems. And so they're coming from it from a very different perspective than in the commercial side, because the people who do quote unquote lighting in the commercial side deal with the fixtures. They do not oftentimes deal with the controls. Whereas if you talk to these people who do the lighting controls, if you start asking them about lighting and don't clarify anything, they're going to start talking to you about lighting controls, because that is what lighting is to them. And so that's a really interesting flip, because the question then becomes, well, who is providing the lighting fixtures specifically? And to your point, what you were saying is the contractors for a long time have been providing that, but as a result, the quality of lighting has suffered. And I would say that in the commercial side, the quality of lighting fixtures is good, but the lighting controls can really suffer from the lack of supervision. And so the
That's a
lighting
nice way
is
of putting
also
it.
the lighting is also poor, but because of a different situation. And so I would
Okay,
say
yeah.
that the full equation is lighting controls plus lighting equals good lighting. If you don't have supervision over both sides of that equation, the risk is that you're going to have poor lighting. And so what
Yeah.
you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that because these people are so focused on controls and unfamiliar with the requirements of how to do lighting design, they're still not filling out that equation completely. They're providing a really solid solution on the control side, but on the fixture side, it could be wanton.
I would say, yeah, on the fixture side, it can be wanton. It's kind of like, I don't know, like on one level, I guess you could look at a lighting fixture kind of like a paintbrush. Like I have an art background, and I can paint, murals and portraits and all that other kind of stuff on the side in my free time, whatever. And so you may have different brushes that you could have in your quote unquote artistic quiver, right? And if you understand what that brush is meant to do, like, so if I have a long thin tip on the brush, I'm going to paint really thin lines and do details and kind of maybe do calligraphic symbols, right? If I have a really fat brush, I'm going to lay a wash of paint on the background, and then I have a good all around brush sort of mixed in the middle there, right? I think sometimes what I find in the conversation is if I start the conversation around how many brushes can I sell, right? Then I'm just interested in selling brushes, and I don't really
Right.
care if it's a brush that's going to paint a line, or if it's a brush that's going to give you a big wide wash. And what I
Yeah.
think design does to the conversation is says, what kind of picture are we trying to paint
Right.
first? And then let's find out
Yes.
what brushes will help deliver that image for the owner. And then let's actually start to utilize those brushes with proper technique to create something that's going to be beautiful, right? Um, and where I feel some of the custom integrators are at right now in the broader CEDIA conversation is that my sense, and on some levels I'm biased, but I think that there is definite movement and motivation, is where first off the CEDIA channel needs to establish an identity whereby people understand that when I say I'm a custom integrator, people understand what that is.
Hmm.
Just last year, not this year, but 2023, one of the big keynote addresses to the larger group was sponsored by a lighting company that interviewed several key partners that they had on the manufacturer side. And the basic question that they're answering is, what is a custom integrator? And so they have all these guys tell stories about this is what a custom integrator does. And what's funny is you will not find consistent agreement across the industry. What is a custom integrator? I think certain ideas of technology, certain ideas of controls, certain ideas of bringing all these technological components together, will factor into that. But each one has their own kind of foray into that space. All that said, identifying first off what a custom integrator is and does is important. But then as a result, because they don't have that definition, it's hard for people in the lighting community as a whole to take them seriously. Like when they say, "Hey, we would love to have you talk to us about lighting," like, "What are you again? Who are you? What's this all about?"
Yeah.
And so, then because those people don't necessarily fully understand who they're dealing with or what they're talking about, these guys are like, okay, I guess we're just going to figure it out as we go, and we'll just see who's going to do business with us, and we're going to use this entrepreneurial spirit that we contain and are just like say yes first and figure it out at second kind of mentality that served them well to this point, where they grow in their knowledge and they have a ton of understanding across a broad range of technologies. They apply that same thing to lighting. But there's not definitive voices that really understand it, who are just trying to say, "Hey guys, love what you're trying to do here. Let's provide some context for what you're engaged in." Um, and then as a result of that voice not being present, I think my personal take is those who are driving the conversation are framing the conversation around three things. First, and all three are contained in the phrase they use. They talk about the lighting fixture category or lighting fixture channel. And so when I think about lighting, the focus immediately is on fixtures as a primary lens, rather than, as I
Yep.
talked about, the brushes. I don't care what brush Van Gogh uses to paint pictures. Van Gogh will use whatever brush he wants. I'm interested in the final painting, the work of art that he creates. But by saying fixtures, then I'm focused on the brush, right? The second thing is the lighting fixtures. Again, it's profit centered then. So it's
Yeah.
component centered, then it's profit centered by and large. Because like, oh man, if I sell, because I'm dealing with a high end residential client, I'm going to provide them a high end residential product, and that's going to cost anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per hole. Man, 200 times 1,000, that's really good, you know. And so that kind of feeds a certain kind of appetite for the projects. Oh, and then I just have the electrical contractor do it for me. Oh, that's even better. I don't have to worry about labor. I just get all the value. And then the third part of it is called channel. And when I think about channel, in the age of remote controls, we think about, oh, I just push this button if I want to watch that. I push this button if I want to watch that. push this button if I want to watch this. So like, oh, I push this button for security. I push this button for audio, push this button for video. Oh, I push this button for lighting. Done deal. And what I think people that take lighting seriously within this specific category, the specific channel, is that they recognize it's an entirely different remote control with a whole different set of buttons and a whole different kind of logic and a whole different level of understanding that you need to have to be proficient in using it well. Otherwise, you're just, having a customer spend a heck of a lot more money on a product that isn't driven by proper placement, and you may end up with the exact same result that you would have had on the basic bid set layout that the architect or builder submitted for permit, with them not making any kind of educated assessment of where these products should go. And so, as that has been, I think, the foreground for a lot of the conversation and discussion, we're at I think on some levels a crossroads within the industry, where custom integrators are saying, oh, let me go after the golden goose. Let me just shake that goose and get as many eggs out of it that I can, and let the giants be damned, And then there's others that are like, oh wow, let me take really good care of this goose. Let me nurture it. Let me even give it a name, bring it into my home, raise it as one of my own, because I want to develop a good relationship over the long term with this goose so that it can continue to produce over a good period of time. And those are the ones that I think like, oh, let me take a step back. Let me pause. Let me recognize that what I'm engaged in is a pretty serious business. So we're kind of in an interesting place, I think, where there will be another threshold of growth and development for the industry as a whole, where there'll start to be more differentiation of those that just want to get in because they're being told to, or because they're trying to chase after a better bottom line or whatever. And those understand the complexities and the demands of what Webster was talking about, being, saying, as I establish these relationships with both lighting design professionals or build up my own capacity, I'm able to truly provide a much more integrated, seamless solution for these clients, really kind of crafting something that's bespoke for them in this place with their lifestyle, right? That I hope is the goal. We're still moving in that direction,
all right.
I'd say.
Before we jump into controls for all that, I want to circle back to fixture selection, because it is so important,
Sure.
right? Fixture selection, quality of light really matters, right? And so there's a lot to be said for that. And I would imagine not, people who aren't lighting designers and looking at depending on how they're coming into this, may just look at it being told manufacturer A, manufacturer B, but may not understand quality of light. They may not understand optics, right? I mean, how many times have you seen just tape light in a cove where maybe that wasn't the ideal solution because you've got a 15-foot vaulted ceiling and the tape light goes 3 feet, right? Like, there's a lot to be said for that. So for architect, in the commercial side, the architects and lighting designers constantly have people paraded in front of them through the rep agencies. They're bringing manufacturers in, they're showing them the product so they can see the newest and greatest thing, they can ask questions, they can learn about new product. So from the resi side, from CEDIA side, how is there that sort of channel? Is there that sort of rep agency where there's someone to bring these products through these integration firms so that they, people who are trying to get into the design market can learn about product, can learn about quality of light, see the dimming curve, understand color tuning, color temperature, color changing aspects, and optics and all that. How does that all work on that side?
Well, that is a very interesting question. I think it really depends on, there's so many dependencies in answering that question. For example, there's, first off, just the lay of the land on one level. There are what you call, manufacturer partners, like some of the early adopters of the CEDIA channel are manufacturers that were asked one question: will you sell directly to us and through us? And just have transparent pricing. What's the dealer net, DN pricing, and then we'll do our standard markup on that. So if I'm selling a Sony TV, for example, I've got, $100 that I'll buy it from you for, and I'll sell it for $200 to the client. There's that mentality that's baked into the fabric of the broader CEDIA channel. That same mentality has then woven into like, hey, what are you going to sell this widget for? Well, let me go ahead and look to see what that's all about. It's like, I don't want to bother with you. Deal with me directly, or just walk. So there's an incentive for manufacturers if they want to move product through an integrator, that there's going to be more transparency. And so there's a direct one-to-one relationship between them and the manufacturer, who will conduct trainings, who will bring product in. They have different regional reps that will go around, meet with individuals. They'll do webinars. They'll record webinars. They'll kind of show you what the products do, all the kinds of bells and whistles they'll roll into that space on a one-to-one basis. As well, that's going to happen during the larger gatherings. CEDIA Expo is going to be in Denver this September, so there'll be an opportunity for some of that glad handing and just kind of seeing product up close. So that's one. Two, there are also custom integrator focused rep agencies. So like in the lighting side, there'll be a rep agency that reps many different lines. Within the CEDIA space, they rep different lines, but it's a narrower subset, because they recognize that, we're just going to focus on, let's say from a TV perspective, we're just going to focus on Samsung and Sony, and that's what we have. From controls, we're going to be a Crestron and a Lutron, kind of dealer. And we're going to have these lines for shades, and these lines for audio, these lines for speakers, these lines for projectors. Boom. Similarly with lighting too, they don't have dozens and dozens and dozens of lines. They're like, okay, this checks off enough boxes for me, we're good, right? In that space, those individuals are incentivized to provide that extra support so they can understand and see what's going on. So that's level two. Another level is that there's conglomerations of integrators that align under these broader umbrellas for mutual support, encouragement, as well as buying power in the broader marketplace. Those are called buying groups, is kind of the term that they're used. And so there's four major buying groups that have larger presence. There's other subsets and others that are trying to grow into that space. You might hear of a company called HTSA, Home Technology Specialists of America. Another one is called ProSource, and they're a CEDIA channel focused subset of a larger home appliances company called Brand Source. So ProSource is focused on the CI channel, they say. Brand Source is focused on the broader kind of retail space for, they have couches and refrigerators as well under Brand Source. Then there's another company similar to Brand Source called Nationwide Marketing Group. And Nationwide Marketing Group has three custom integration focused subsets based upon the market focus of the integrators that occupy that space. So Nationwide started with their own internal company which has now been rebranded as Oasis Residential Technology. They are primarily their business has a certain level of maturity wherein they are just making so much money in profit per year. A step up, an independent buying group called Azion Unlimited has joined Nationwide Marketing Group to hit a middle to upper tier of the residential space. Some of those guys occupy resi and commercial, light commercial. And then there's a totally commercial integrator focused group called Ellipsis. And those are all under the broader umbrella of Nationwide Marketing Group. So how does product come to them? As different manufacturer partners want to do business and establish programs through these buying groups, they therefore also have additional incentive to bring product to market and kind of showcase things, provide support to the integrators, sometimes even doing design. I do air quotes again, but no. Oh, I got bubble balloons this time. My air quotes produce balloons, guys. I don't know what the deal is. So we do design services for them because there's an incentive to provide support to the integrators by companies that clearly are incentivized to move product, and they want to create a what I call they want to create a case for why their product should go where it's going to go in a project, and so design documents is the way that they utilize that. But there's a little bit of muddying of the waters there. So, product perspective, those I think are the main three areas. And if in a given market the integrator recognizes that there are lighting designer partnerships and lighting rep firm partnerships available to them, they may so choose to go that route. But for the most part, they kind of stay in one of those three puddles, or I call them lily pads. They kind of hop around from those lily pads as they're trying to figure out how to source product for their projects.
It's fascinating. It's such a very different path to market from what like we're used to with the commercial side. Like, so there really is just a focus on more going direct and working as a partner with a manufacturer versus going through a rep and through like an electrical distributor, which is what we're used to with more of the commercial side, right? That's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, one of the things we can really kind of look at this through the lens with lighting controls in mind here is something that Ron and I keep observing in the commercial side of lighting is the fact that, you know, the reps are an integral part of how lighting controls succeed on a project. And in this residential side of things, that because of the absence of reps, the integrators are the ones, the dealers are the ones that are left holding that responsibility. And so I'm not saying one path is better than the other, but what the interesting thing is with the residential side is because of the fact that a dealer is technically agnostic to a brand, they can have multiple brands under their listing and be prepared to integrate with those multiple brands and support both brands on a single project, which is not something that sales reps are typically prepared to do because they can't really transcend their own brand products to another brand's products. And so there's less of that friction. You know, as we discussed, there is other friction sources within this model, but it is a really interesting exercise to try and envision, you know, if we were to replicate this model in the commercial channels, how that would work. Because I think one of the major points of contention would be that all of these rep agencies who have built up these controls departments would then have to repurpose those departments to support these projects going forward. And that may be a loss of revenue in the end.
Yeah. And I would say what's interesting for the integration of the CEDIA channel focused in the residential space is there's even further reaching disruption because, you know, on one hand, they're moving beyond the standard lighting rep agency model. They're essentially acting as an electrical distributor, right? Because they're bringing the product directly to the project themselves, directly from the manufacturer to them, to the project, or directly to the project, and they're brokering that. And then even potentially, they're stepping on the toes of so many other players in the space as they're providing lighting design services on a project, you know, moving the out of the way, or maybe moving the interior designer, and definitely stepping on the electrical contractor's toes that they see, in depending on who you talk to, as both a necessary evil as well as an inconvenience. Like, you gotta deal with that electrical contractor. He's too dumb for us because all he knows is high voltage, but because of code and legalities, we got to go through that guy. You know, this little tool's got to carry our burden for us. But you know, we get rid of him. You know.
Which is a really unfortunate position to be in, I think, you know, to be an adversary to all of the players in the game. You know, it does seem to be set up to be a disruptor, and not in a collaborative way, but in an adversarial way. And if we start seeing drift into the commercial world, you know, my question is, what is driving that drift? Because, you know, if, for instance, an example given to me by a colleague in the residential side was the reason why they want the dealers to do the lighting design work is because they cannot afford to have a lighting designer involved. And
Mm-hmm.
the question is, okay, what is the price point that's being fought here? And additionally, where is the money ending up going as a result? Because it's not that you get
Mm-hmm.
lighting design for free, quote unquote.
Right.
It's that you get the lighting design and it's packaged someplace else. Similarly to the
Exactly.
commercial side, you get lighting controls design whether you're working with a rep or not. But it's whether or not that cost is rolled into the cost of the project when the package is delivered or when the actual system is delivered. And so
Yeah.
the challenge here is that I would imagine these dealers are rolling in fees into their cost structure to ensure that they're recouping the cost of labor to design the lighting.
Yep. That's very good. And I want to just back up real quick and make sure that I don't disparage electrical contractors at all. I'm just saying,
Sure.
There's just a general sense of like, what are we going to do with these guys? We can't get rid of them. We just got to find a way to deal with them. But like, they provide a valuable and vital link in the entire chain. And so whenever I engage a project, there's a sense that when you get a lighting designer involved, just about any residential project takes on the caliber of a commercial project because of the level of complexity that emerges. It's not just running Romex, four cans and one loop of Romex and one light, one fan and a loop of Romex, and then a simple pull switch.
Right.
I'm done. Good, I can move on. It's like, oh, we have a cove light now, and it has this kind of control protocol, and then we have, we have these no fan, hopefully. Then we have sconces, and then we have step lighting, and then we've got other recessed downlight, but not all recessed downlight's the same because this recess is aimed at that artwork that's going to have a certain kind of brightness, and the rest of it's going to be different. And all of a sudden, you end up with like 6 loads in the room when all of a sudden before it was just 2 on a simple pull switch.
Right.
So for the electrical contractor, there's a incentivization to both educate them as well as provide enough information and support so that they can say, okay, there's complexity here, but the designer has really made it clear for me, so I know what my marching orders are, and there's no guesswork, even though I know there's more work involved, right?
Yeah,
so
and
that's important.
The electricians.
Go ahead.
I think it's an important distinction, though, that the electricians, they want to get in and get out as fast as possible. We all know that. But they're not lighting designers. They don't want to be lighting designers. So a lot of these guys, they look at the prints, especially if they're generic prints, right? And they're just like, we're going to slap up a bunch of 6-inch cans everywhere. And great. And you're like, no. Over this island, we really want to use like these 2-inch like mud-ins so that they look really nice and the focus is on the island and we just don't want to throw light everywhere. But that's not what they do, right? That's not their focus. So it's, how much, like, don't get me wrong, there's certainly an incentive to train them, especially on the commercial side, right? We like to get them trained in lighting controls and the understanding of the different protocols. And it's this wire and this wire. We know copper is not copper. We can't doesn't work this way, but they're not designers, right? There's got to be some kind of give and take there.
It's like, what do you mean there's 5 parts to this one light? I got a mudding ring, I got a trim, I got a reflector, I got an optic, I got a box, I got a module. What? I had a remote driver? What are you talking about? Just pop it in and I'm done,
Well, and
a beautiful metaphor for me when I think about electrical contractor as it relates to design is I think they envision design the way Pacman envisions a maze. Like, I just want to get through as quickly as I possibly can and not have any ghosts bump into me. Just get me in and out so I can move to the next level.
I love it.
But I think a lighting designer is sort of like Final Fantasy, let's say, or like Breath of the Wild for Zelda. Like, it's an open world. Let's just explore the territory. They're like, no, I just want to move to the next level. So like, there's such a disparity there that we have to understand. Hey, Pac-Man, come on, take a step outside the walls of your maze. Let me show you a new world. No.
Well, we're almost out of time here, but I want to package this. I know. Time flies by so fast, but we will definitely have you back on, Bruce, because there's so much more to unpack here.
We didn't even really get to controls.
No, we really didn't. But I think, well, we did. I mean, the thing is that fixtures, lighting is essential for there to be a need for controls. You cannot control nothing. And so having lighting that is good lighting is something that when you have a lighting designer in a commercial project, you take it for granted. Whereas in a residential side, you may actually appreciate your lighting designers more by seeing some of these projects that have no designer, nobody holding the hand of anybody, and just letting it go full tilt. And then you go, whoa, why do we have like 5,000 lights in this room? So, there's a lot of challenges to overcome with this, but at the same time, it's the flip side of what we're experiencing in the commercial side, because they're very skilled controls designers in this residential world that are able to do some amazing things with lighting controls. And they're fully respected and appreciated. And I wish that we had more of those in the commercial side of things, because finding an integrator on a lighting project in the commercial side is a rarity. Ron, your company gets pulled onto specialty projects, like you said. You're not in those bread and butter copy paste office space designs that still need somebody to hold the hand of the controls designer, the installer, I should say. So there's still something that both sides can learn from each other. And I think part of it is kind of meeting halfway, meeting at the threshold and saying, you have knowledge and experience that I do not have. And I respect that. And I want to allow that to enter my side of the industry. And the challenge is finding avenues for that to happen. Why do we not have integrators on commercial projects? Because of expense, the argument. Same thing with why do we not have lighting designers on residential projects? Same argument. It's the expense. But it's not. It's just where the money ends up in the end. And so finding ways to ensure that conversation is a little bit more transparent, a little bit more honest, a little bit more focused on the success of the project and less on just shipping boxes, I think is going to help that move forward. But at the same time, I'm not saying that this is all greed focused. I mean, there are groups out there, like you said, Bruce, that are trying their best to facilitate these conversations, take that golden goose and care for it, as opposed to squeezing it out and just hoping that they get as many golden eggs as they can. So
before they kill the goose.
Before they kill the goose. But ultimately, these conversations do need to happen. And so that's one of the reasons why I thought it would be wonderful to have you on this show talking about this side of the industry, and have you back on as well, because there's so much more to talk about when it comes to lighting controls in the residential market that is different from the commercial side of things. But I kind of blew through my recap. The sum of the recap here, though, is that there is this other side of the industry that is kind of a dormant giant, that our listeners, I strongly suggest you keep an ear out to see what's happening in that side of the industry, because there are very skilled people in that industry who know a lot about lighting controls, and they're a really good resource to tap into for your next lighting controls project.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I would say, Oh no, you can respond first, and then I'll jump in and close this out. Let's go.
That's beautiful. So I would say, you were saying something that really got me excited, because as a designer am working with a lot of integrators, I work with them all over the country, and each one of them has their own particular flavor and nuance of what they bring to the controls conversation. So there's kind of a two-parter there, where I feel the more that I know about their world, how they view lighting, how they see controls, what they know they can and can't do with controls, I feel that those are additional brushes that I can use to make an even better picture. Especially when you stop thinking of lighting as a static thing, and start thinking of
Yeah.
lighting as a dynamic thing, you can only
Yes.
achieve that dynamism in the residential space with a sophisticated application of controls. That said, on the flip side, to Webster's point about mutuality, is that anytime a lighting designer gets involved in the project, you're going to have more loads, you're going to have more product, you're going to have more layers,
Yep.
and you add
Yep.
a level of complexity that most controls guys, like I've been doing controls for 25 years, but like what you just gave me was like way too much for me to try to figure out, because I've been doing lighting controls on some crackpot, lighting plan that only had just a few loads. That's easy to do. Now all of a sudden I have to figure out the level of complexity where
Right.
just these 2 lights turn on, but not the other 4, and all this other kind of stuff. And so it's
Yeah.
forcing them and encouraging them to like
Yeah.
raise their controls game, because the level of complexity that a designer brings to the equation, to this layered thought process, helps them also grow, I think, as controls designers. That's my 2 cents. It's my recap.
No, I love it. I love it. Bruce, thank you so much. Like Webster said, we'll have you back on because we didn't really dive into the differences of the control systems between commercial. And I really do think our listeners would really be interested in hearing some of the differences and understanding, because like being exposed to that, knowing that there's manufacturers out there, and I'll just a couple of examples, just, for people who are interested, like, Savant or Control 4, right? There's something to be said, especially in the residential market, about having a really sexy keypad and a really sexy interface, and that is not necessarily the focus in the commercial world. And it is a vastly different approach to controls. And like, I really think our listeners, we could spend an entire another hour on that, right? And
just on
I know our
toggle
listeners,
switches or buttons.
right. We're not talking Home Depot Lutron cassetta. Like, don't get me wrong, I love it, but we're at a different level here, right? And I really think people would really enjoy hearing about that and the differences, because I think Webster and I kind of, being exposed to that, we see that and we want to bring some of that to the commercial side.
Yes.
And so that's right. So I think it's a really interesting conversation that we definitely have to have, and we'll have to have you come back on so we can talk more about paintbrushes. So Bruce, man, thank you so much. That was a fantastic conversation. Guys. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really had no idea what I was going to say at the beginning. And I'm a little nervous about doing lighting controls because that's not my forte, but man, this is what it's going to be like. I'm happy to jump on next time with you guys. This is fun.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I will just close us out and remind everyone today's episode is presented by the LCA, the Lighting Controls Association.
And it's financially supported by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, or NAILD. Check out our website, lightingcontrolspodcast.com. We have all of our episodes, a merch store, a news feed, training opportunities, as well as our Council on Lighting Control Startup and Integration if you want to get involved. And additionally, huge thanks to our sponsor, MW Connect, formerly known as McWong. Check them out, mwconnect.us, to check out all of their products. They've been in this industry for a long time, over 40 years now, and they have a lot of knowledge and expertise to share. If you want to check out our episode where we interview Margaret Wong and Stephen Zhao, where they tell us all about the history of MW Connect and the rebranding experience, check it out. It's one of our more recent episodes if you're listening to this right as it releases. But, they really are a fantastic resource. If you are unfamiliar with the brand MW Connect, really check out their products, check out their educational materials. They really want to be a part of your next project and help you out and make sure that it really goes well. So really worth checking them out. I can't say enough good things about them. But until then, thank you so much for joining us. And Bruce, thank you for a great conversation.